Good afternoon. Welcome everybody to the Tennessee Post Commission informal hearing. What we're going to do first is call roll to see who's here and not here. We will then proceed through the agenda. In the event that there's anybody who's not present when we call the roll shows up later. It is Nashville, and getting here sometimes can be an adventure. So we'll give everybody that opportunity to be here as we move through the agenda, and we'll just start right here at the top. All right. Marcus Parr from the Alamo Police Department. Marcus Parr, for anybody from Alamo. Mario Pree, Collierville. Mario Pree, saw Collierville back there, yes, sir. Alexander Sherwood. Alexander Sherwood, Gleason PD. And we'll get to it when we get to the agenda. Tyreek Campbell. Tyreek Campbell, Knoxville PD. Thank you, gentlemen. Dan Rourke. Dan Rourke. I don't expect he'll be joining us today. The issue of Gregory Mahler we'll discuss when we get to that on the agenda. Daniel Barrios. Daniel Barrios, anybody from Polk County? Richard Pollock. Richard Pollock. Anybody from O'Brien PD? Cody Jones. Thank you, Mr. Jones. And I see our representative from safety over there in the corner. Nathan Pulley.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and I'm William Lockhart from the Cheatham County Bar representing Mr. Pulley.
Thank you, sir. Tyler Cravens. Thank you, sir. And Rutherford County, I thought I saw him. There you go. Thank you, Mr. Vincent. William Gregg. Thank you, sir. And Washington County, I see Washington County here as well. And Morgan Leslie. Morgan Leslie. All right. We'll just go ahead and start at the top here. The Alamo Police Department, Marcus Parr. Mr. Parr was terminated for criminal conduct. We have service on Mr. Parr. And did he indicate he wasn't coming today? So he's not appearing today.
Commissioner Wright, I'll make a default motion for decertification based upon criminal policy and procedure violation.
So we have a motion of termination.
Commissioner Beverly, second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving to Collierville Police Department. Demario Pree. Mr. Pree resigned with disciplinary action pending. Mr. Pree was going to be here today.
He was originally set last month, and he said he had a family, watching a family member that was sick, wanted to this month, and he knew about today. I contacted him a couple of days ago, and he's not present at the moment.
Would like to give time to the end or proceed?
We can move it to the end if you want.
Either move to the end, just come circle back. Carterville is here, correct?
Correct. Moving to the matter of Alex Sherwood and the Gleason Police Department. Mr. Sherwood was terminated for violating policies and procedures. We're going to ask Investigator Creed to share some information that he has from the agency and Mr. Sherwood.
The agency itself emailed me a few days ago and requested not to pursue the matter any further, and they don't want to pursue the decertification. Mr. Sherwood himself obtained attorney Kim Gillahan out of Rutherford County, and she requested this hearing be pushed off till next month because she couldn't make today's docket, today's agenda, since she was just hired recently. But Lisa does not want to pursue the matter any further. And sorry, Kevin Creed, post investigator.
Commissioner Wright, was he currently working for any?
He's not currently employed. He was terminated from police and PD.
Commissioner Wright, I'll make a motion for no action.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Wilbur, second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Uh,
Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving along to the matter of Tyree Campbell, Knoxville PD. Mr. Campbell resigned during an internal investigation. Mr. Campbell?
He called the office here and said he was not going to be attending this hearing.
We do have proper service on Mr. Campbell.
Commissioner Wright, motion for decertification, default decertification. I believe this was a termination, not a resignation, correct?
My notes show resignation.
Default decertification for resignation in lieu of termination for violation of departmental policies and procedures.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Jeffers, second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving along to Dan Rourke. Mr. Rourke was terminated for criminal conduct. Mr. Rourke? Again, probably not joining us today. He's probably previously indisposed, if I remember correctly.
Motion to decertify on termination.
We have a motion.
Commissioner Wright, second, default. Yes, decertification.
Motion and a second. We do have proper service. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Gregory Marlar of the Memphis PD. Mr. Marlar was submitted for decertification, but he has since passed away. We just want to bring this matter before the post commission so that the file could be closed accordingly.
Would the proper thing just be no action?
I think that is an appropriate motion.
Commissioner Wright, make a motion for no.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that for the court reporter?
Maribeth Nicely, Associate Counsel. I think that is an appropriate motion that could be made.
Thank you. And we have a motion by Commissioner Wright for no action.
Correct.
Do we have a second?
Commissioner Jeffers, second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Daniel Barrios of the Polk County Sheriff's Office. Mr. Barrios. Once going twice. I believe he was served and has stated to our investigator that he would not be present because he's moved out of state.
And he's no longer in law enforcement.
Commissioner Wright, motion, default motion for decertification, violation of departmental policy and procedure.
We have a motion.
Commissioner Wilburn.
Have a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. The matter of Richard Pollock, the Obion Police Department. Mr. Pollock. Mr. Pollock was terminated for violating policies and procedures.
Well, this was a pretty open to.
It is, but our investigators got a hold of Mr. Pollock and did serve him, and he was notified of the hearing.
Commissioner Wright, motion, default motion for violation. Violation of departmental policy and procedures.
We have a motion.
Commissioner Jeffers, second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. In the matter of Cody Jones and the Department of Safety, Mr. Jones was terminated for violating policies and procedures. And Mr. Jones was here, so we'll have a representative of the Department of Safety go ahead and come up and identify yourself and explain why you're seeking the decertification of Mr. Jones.
I'm Sergeant Jeremy Wellhite, Department of Safety, Office of Professional Accountability. Mr. Jones was terminated during his probationary period during the field training program. During his program, he was offered given two phases of remedial training due to his performance during the training. Some of these deficiencies fall under critical performance tasks, which this includes performance under stressful conditions, general officer safety, safety while dealing with suspicious persons or prisoners. In addition to that, there were the frequent performance tasks where Mr. Jones received 7 failing ratings out of 13 subcategories. Categories where they had unsatisfactory performance, including proper form selection in terms of accuracy and completeness, report writing in terms of organization and details, and in grammar, spelling, and neatness. Also, performance under non-stress conditions, problem solving and decision making, and also radio communication. During his FTO period, he was given the opportunity with 5 different FTOs, and the performance did not improve during the training.
Thank you. Any questions?
Commissioner Beverly, did he violate any policies or any disciplinary action resulting from these actions, or was it just unable to perform the job and was released when he was in probationary period?
It was the performance during training that he didn't meet the standard to be a solo trooper through the performance tasks.
Questions for safety? Thank you, Mr. Wilhite. Mr. Jones? You would just identify yourself and explain to the commissioners what's going on, your side of the story.
Cody Jones, I was employed with the Department of Safety. I applied with the Highway Patrol a total of 4 times. I believe it was about 4 times. But so I didn't pass the FTO program. So they let me go. I do want to say that I had been post-certified for about 4 years prior. Got post-certified through Knox County Sheriff's Office, and as soon as I got terminated with the Highway Patrol, I went back to Knox County Sheriff's Office, and I'm currently employed with Knox County Sheriff's Office, but I successfully, maintained a post certification for approximately 4 or so years prior to going to THP. My, intention was to never leave THP, but I never gave the county another shot to the STO program or anything like that. I'm still looking to further my career with Sheriff's Office, but, there were, some discrepancies to, I did not meet the standard as a solo trooper, but I did good with one FTO, bad with another FTO, and I feel like there was continuous progress, just not on that certain timetable, more or less. That's all.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Jones?
Commissioner Beverly, you passed the Trooper Academy, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wright, is Knox County Sheriff's Department the only other department you ever worked for?
Yes, sir. I got hired with Knox County Sheriff in 2018, and I got post certified with their regional training academy in 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Commissioner Wright, make a motion for no action.
Commissioner Beverly, second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries for no action, so the file will be closed.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, also from the Department of Safety, the matter of Nathan Pulley. Mr. Pulley was terminated for violating policies and procedures. You have the representative of the Department of Safety come back up and share with us about Mr. Pulley.
Mr. Pulley was terminated during his probationary period. His supervisors had conducted a documented coaching session with him during September of 2023 regarding deficiencies in his overall work performance. During that session, Mr. Pulley admitted that he had not been performing his job satisfactorily due to both professional and personal issues. Few instances of unsatisfactory job performance. December 13th, Mr. Pulley failed to respond to a call for service. He was dispatched to a motorist assist. He called the motorist, determined where the motorist was, and advised dispatch they just needed a ride, and admitted he did not go to the call for service. Mr. Pulley told his supervisor that dispatch said they were busy and asked him to call the county for assistance, which was inaccurate and proven not factual. On November 16, 23, supervisor emailed Mr. Pulley about a 6 vehicle fatality crash report. On November the 21st, a second email was sent asking him to come to the office so it can be corrected. Supervisor explained that there had been 3 requests for the report. And he showed up at the post 3.5 hours later after checking in after the request from the supervisor. After he revised the report, he then submitted it again without fixing, or after being told to fix the report, I'm sorry. He then submitted it without fixing the listed mistakes. In addition, case files have been consistently late or incomplete with little or no excuse. One report on November the 23rd was turned in late, stated because the report was rejected. The supervisor emailed Mr. Pulley asking for the December 14th case file. Mr. Pulley was asked about the crash report that occurred on December 17th and was requested on January the 22nd. Mr. Pulley stated, "I just didn't do it on time. I have no excuse for it. I didn't do it." Another report that Mr. Pulley was asked to fix by the end of the shift. that was requested by a citizen on January the 25th. And the crash was also late, wasn't completed till January the 12th. I'm sorry, it happened on the crash was on December 30th. I apologize. And it was late and completed on January the 12th. When doing the report, Mr. Pulley was asked about the crash and stated he didn't have the children's information. This was a conflict from the citizen that said names were backwards and the children's names weren't included in the report. When asked why he didn't get the information at the time of the crash, he stated he was given the information but lost it. He said he had no excuse. It's another crash on December the 31st. A request for the report came in on January the 12th by mother of juvenile. Mr. Pulley was asked why it was not done. He stated, I just didn't get to it. I did all the others. I forgot about that. When asked why the reports were turned in late with multiple errors and must be rejected numerous times, Mr. Pulley stated it was for mistakes he couldn't explain. Mr. Pulley had not corrected the issues that were discussed in the coaching session in September. He was offered the opportunity to write a statement of consideration on anything discussed. He declined, stating he had no excuses. What he had done, yes, was 100% wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Do we have any questions for Department of Safety? All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. Mr. Pulley and counsel, you can come and just identify yourself and give us your side.
Your Honor, my name is William Lockhart, Lockert. I represent Mr. Pulley. He certainly did make mistakes in submitting reports. He's advised that he requested additional training in regard to assisting him in writing reports and getting them correct. But by and large, he can't deny that he did mess up on some of these reports. The one where he got the names backwards, the people were Chinese, and he did get the names backwards, but he has requested assistance in that regard. But the main thing is he has worked since 2017, and even prior to that, he worked in corrections before becoming certified. He still wishes to work in law enforcement. He worked at the Houston County Sheriff's Department without any problems, and feels like with some training, he could continue to work and do a good job, perhaps on a local county level. And he would like to be able to keep his certification for that purpose.
Thank you, Counselor. Any questions for Counselor Lockhart or Mr. Pulley?
Commissioner Wright, when did he first obtain his post certification?
Are you asking me?
Either one that can answer. What he said.
2017.
Is Houston County the only department that would work for before going to THP, or were there any other departments involved?
No, sir. Stewart County, Cheatham, White Bluff, and Dixon.
He comes from a long line of law enforcement. His parents work in law enforcement. His grandfather worked in law enforcement back when I was an assistant district attorney. And even though he's made mistakes on writing some reports, he would like the opportunity to try to continue to work and would take whatever training necessary to remedy deficiencies in report writing.
Commissioner Beverly, I've got a question, I guess, about the Hickman County call and asking the county to cover that. Can you explain a little bit further on that side?
Yes. So when I first originally got the call, it was in a whole nother district. District 7 is Hickman County, which I figured a trooper or a deputy would be so much closer than I was, I was in McEwen, which is about a 45-minute drive with that guy just sitting there waiting on me. I called at the dispatch center and they did advise me that there was a deputy that was close by. So I did advise my dispatch that there was a deputy that was closer than I was that can get to him and assist him much better than I could in a faster manner and get him back on the roadway.
Were you told to contact their dispatch or did you take it upon yourself?
When I called dispatch at first, I called our dispatch and she said that they're busy. And so I hung up the phone and I notified their Hickman County dispatch. And that's when I spoke with them to see if somebody was closer. If somebody was not close at all, I would 100% go. I've never dodged a call. I do exactly what every other trooper does. And if somebody's closer, they're going to take it.
Commissioner Wright, what was your assigned county on the highway patrol?
Humphreys County.
Looks like you got pretty busy with crashes there from November.
We had Humphreys, Dixon, and Cheatham County. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Wright, I'm gonna make a motion for that action.
We have a motion for no action.
Commissioner Beverly, second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for your time. If I could indulge a papa for a minute of bragging, my 16-year-old grandson set a national record in weightlifting, bench, deadlift, and squat, 1,604 pounds. 277-pound Hulk for a grandson. But thank you. I know. They need a 24-hour stay in this 5 minutes.
We'll also take a second to recognize Commissioner Jackson has now joined us. Appreciate you coming down. Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, we'll move forward to Rutherford County Sheriff's Office in the matter of Tyler Cravens. Mr. Cravens was terminated for criminal conduct. If the representative of Rutherford County would just come to the lectern and just identify yourself and tell us for your reason for seeking certification.
Sure. My name is Sergeant Benson, at the County Sheriff's Office. Mr. Cravens was placed on administrative leave on 10 May, pending the outcome of an internal administrative investigation as well as an external criminal investigation conducted by Murfreesboro Police Department into an allegation of patronizing prostitution. This allegation was brought to our attention first by a lieutenant out of Franklin Police Department, and then shortly thereafter, the victim herself came in and made a formal complaint. Mr. Cravens was then terminated by the Sheriff's Office on 15 May, stemming from the violation of multiple department policies and the corroborating findings of the criminal investigation for violation of TCA 3913-514, patronizing prostitution. Mr. Craven's actions bring great discredit upon the Rutherford County Sheriff's Office as well as discredit the law enforcement profession. Mr. Craven's truthfulness and honesty was inconsistent at best during his interview with the detectives. Mr. Craven's integrity to uphold the law and truthful in all instances in question could have ramifications in the courtroom through the Brady rule. Honesty and truthfulness are the cornerstones of the body of law, and in such law enforcement officers' actions, integrity, and honesty must be above reproach. It's due to the totality of actions by Mr. Craven, lying, dishonesty, violation of department policies, and his criminal culpability that the department not only terminated Mr. Craven, but is also seeking Mr. Craven's decertification as a law enforcement officer.
Thank you, Sergeant. Any questions of the agency?
We have proper notification.
Yes, sir. Mr. Cravens is here.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Sergeant. Mr. Cravens and council, you can approach the lectern and just identify yourselves for the commission. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, members of the commission. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Jack Mitchell. I'm a member of the Rutherford County Bar here on behalf of Mr. Cravens. I think it's worth pointing out that while Sergeant says that Mr. Cravens was not forthcoming during his questioning about detectives, it is my understanding, not having seen any reports, that he gave a truthful statement as to his actions. And briefly, what occurred was that he made an offhanded remark that he should not have made to a food delivery driver at the front door of his own house. No question that it was a stupid action. It was a rash action. When you talk about patronizing prostitution, he's not out running the roads, making offers to alleged hookers or anything of the sort. Not discounting what he has done, and he accepts the termination from the Rutherford County Sheriff's Office. However, it's worth noting that during his brief 3 years as a post-certified deputy on the road in Rutherford County, he did receive a Lifesavers Award as a part of a commendation for being one of several deputies who assisted an individual who was attempting suicide during a psychotic episode by setting himself on fire. This is a man who has put himself in harm's way, and he may have to pay with Rutherford County Sheriff's Department for his actions at his own house while off duty. However, he would like to attend some level of counseling, something to assist him in understanding why he did what he did and how to avoid having something like that happen in the future, and be able to be of service to some community in a law enforcement capacity. We would ask that the commission take no action on this request by the Rutherford County Sheriff's Office.
Commissioner Wright, is this still under investigation by the TBI? Well,
I'm not aware of the TBI having it. The Murfreesboro Police Department had it. We're roughly 6 weeks into this. I'm aware of no charges being levied against Mr. Cravens. I suppose they could take something to the grand jury, but I'm not aware of that having been done at this point in time.
okay. Commissioner Wright again, the only thing we have in front of us, it just says the investigation is still ongoing with assistance of the TBI. I don't know if that was truly the case or not. If it was, then I'll make a motion to table it.
That's something that we can certainly ask the agency to see if they're aware at all.
Yes, it's with the DA's office right now, being presented to grand jury for August. That was as of this morning when I found out.
All right, I would make a motion that we table this until the investigation is complete. Let's do cancel. See if you might want to say something.
We do have a pending litigation agreed order that your client may be interested in that would put his post-certification in a suspended status until the litigation was closed, in which then he would have the opportunity to come back into the post-commission and seek reinstatement pending the outcome of the criminal charges.
That sounds reasonable. If he's looking at possible charges, he's certainly not going to be applying for employment with any law enforcement agency at this point in time. So if that's okay with the commission, that's suitable with us.
Commissioner Wright, I'll adopt that into a motion.
All right, so we have a motion for a proposed agreed order of suspension until the criminal matters are resolved, and then we can readdress the situation once that is addressed.
Is that just suspending the procedures or suspending certification?
His post certification would go into a suspended status. That would be reported to the National Decertification Index, and then upon closure of the pending litigation, he could come back and seek a change of that certification status depending on the outcomes of the criminal case.
Okay, and the other option would be that it be just tabled at this point in time, or?
Well, that's another animal, and that's a different motion. Certainly the motion's the one to adopt the proposed agreed order of suspension. It'll be kind of what's the will of the commission. I mean, the agreed order is sort of designed for these kinds of issues, although granted in this instance, the grand jury, depending on how quickly they act, might know something sooner. I'm not sure how quickly Rutherford County's grand jury would be in and out, but
Well, if it's going to August, we're looking at another 60 days. That's going to be the first full week of August. My only concern is that it goes to the national database and could potentially harm him if in fact no charges are levied and he does get his certification back.
So it would just be labeled as a suspension in the National Decertification Index. It would not be labeled as a decertification.
Okay, but even if it's ultimately lifted, it's still going to show that it was suspended at some point in time. Whereas if I'm understanding the tabling it for the time being, we just kind of leave it in a state of limbo to see what happens in the next 60 days or so.
That could be possible. So we could just continue the case to August, or if the commission were to make that motion, or to after August, if you want to come back September.
I would be certainly fine with that. See if they take any action
If the commission,
between now and then.
yeah, if the commission wants to make that motion, it's something that
Commissioner Wright, I'm gonna leave my motion the same. Because I don't think it changes the circumstance in the end anyway. Any department still got the ability to see exactly what's happening right now, contacting the department for references, things of that nature. So it's not like it's just gonna make it go away by tabling it anyway. So.
Oh, well, I fully understand, and he's not going to be out applying for jobs with law enforcement agencies with the threat of prosecution hanging over his head. That would be foolish on his part, and I would certainly advise him not to do that.
Yeah, and I think the purpose of that agreed order is we've had this before where they kind of agree to, yeah, we won't apply anywhere, and they turn around 3 months later, start applying for jobs. And so they instituted this agreed order to kind of make sure that doesn't happen. And I think it's important to understand as well that in the end, if his situation is resolved in his favor, that would be reflected, he would be reinstated. So, I mean, the suspension would be gone and he would be reinstated. So I don't think that would be an issue. And I certainly see your concern about that hanging over his head of, it making some kind of appearance of that he had been suspended. This is just more to ensure that he doesn't go out and work while he's waiting for these matters to get resolved.
Fair enough. We'll take that as a compromise at this point in time. That'd be fine.
Commissioner Jeffers, second motion.
So we have a motion and a second concerning the agreed order. And our staff will just get with you guys about getting that taken care of. And so do we have a vote on the motion? All in favor?
I abstain.
Any opposed? The motion carries with one abstention from Commissioner Bedford.
Mr. Mitchell, do you have a business card? I can just.
I do indeed.
I can just
Like an American Express card. You don't get anywhere without it.
I can just email you that proposed order.
That would be perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time, folks.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on, Washington County Sheriff's Office, the matter of William Douglas Gregg. Mr. Gregg was terminated for violating policies and procedures. Representative of Washington County, if you would just come forward and identify yourself for the record and tell us why we're here.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Sergeant Kevin Hurd of the Washington County Sheriff's Office, HURD. On 4/15/2024, an internal affairs investigation was initiated to review the actions taken by Deputy E. Letterman, Deputy B. Peterson, and Sergeant D. Gregg during an incident that occurred on Log Cabin Road on 4/9/2024 around 9:20 p.m. Deputies responded to this location to conduct a follow-up investigation regarding allegations of a reported vandalism. The complainant was the ex-husband of the female resident on Log Cabin Road. He reported that a camper trailer, which was previously material or marital property, was recently awarded to him during the finalized divorce decree. He reported that earlier that date, his ex-wife had sent him photos of the damage to the camper tires, which he believes was damage intentionally caused by her. The text messages did not include any omissions made by the female regarding her involvement in the vandalism. Upon receiving the information, Deputies Letterman and Peterson went to the Log Cabin Road location to obtain additional information from the female. While at the residence, deputies observed various areas of damage to the camper, which the complainant estimated to be approximately $4,000 worth of damage. Deputies attempted to make contact with the female resident as a suspect in the alleged vandalism. She spoke briefly with the deputies through the glass door of the home and on the phone, but refused to exit her home. She denied any involvement in causing the damage to the camper. She offered to speak about the matter over the telephone, and was continuously told by officers that she needed to exit the home to speak with them, which she refused, and instructed them to leave her property and told him to go get a warrant. The female also advised officers that she had 4 children in the home, wanted to go to bed due to having to get up at 5:30 a.m. in the morning. While on the scene, Deputy Peterson contacted Sergeant Gregg by phone to advise him of the situation. Sergeant Gregg was advised that the female was refusing to exit the home and that there was a felony vandalism to the camper. Deputy Peterson advised Sergeant Gregg that there was probable cause for the felony vandalism, but there was not any additional details shared as to the nature of that probable cause. Sergeant Gregg contacted Captain Light by telephone and advised him of the incident. Specific details regarding the basis of probable cause and exigency to enter into the home were not discussed. Sergeant Gregg arrived on scene approximately 38 minutes after the arrival of the first deputy. Sergeant Gregg spoke briefly with Deputy Peterson and then began attempts to manipulate the lock on the door with the use of a lock-picking tool. Approximately 8 minutes later, entry was gained into the home. After entering the home, the female was located in a bathtub unclothed. She was non-compliant, and officers faced resistance in handcuffing and escorting her from the property. As she was escorted from the home, members of her family arrived on scene and became irate and aggressive towards officers. Deputy Peterson transported the female to the detention center. After transporting the female from the scene, Sergeant Gregg and Deputy Letterman remained at their home, allowing the children to remain in the custody of the female's mother and grandparents. As part of the investigation, the involved officers were interviewed. The body-worn camera footage of the incident was reviewed. Body camera footage could not be located for Sergeant Gregg. In speaking with him, it was determined that he was not utilizing his body camera on that date due to the battery being dead. A review was conducted of the facts and circumstances available to the officers at the time of their arrest. The information was reviewed by Deputy Peterson and Deputy Letterman. Deputy Letterman confirmed that his response to the log cabin property was for investigative purposes to document the reported damage to the camper and attempt to obtain a statement from the female resident. When Deputy Letterman and Deputy Peterson were asked, they were unable to provide valid articulable probable cause to indicate the named arrest. The details used to determine that probable cause were not stated to Sergeant Gregg, and he did not ask additional information of the officers to verify that probable cause had been established. In viewing body cam footage, there was mention by both deputies of their intention to leave the residence and go obtain a warrant. The intent to do so seemed to be dismissed,
based on the fact that the value of the damage of the camper would result in a felony, therefore allowing them to make a warrantless arrest. The warrantless entry into the dwelling to effect the arrest was authorized and completed by Sergeant Gray. In his written statement, he documented that the exigent circumstance for entry was due to the belief that the suspect would flee if officers left there to obtain the warrant. He also noted approval from his supervisor, Captain Light. The totality of the circumstances as they relate to this incident failed to satisfy the requirement for exigency. With regards to these actions and conduct of Sergeant Gregg, the findings of that investigation was a violation of two policies: General Order 26.1 for job knowledge and performance, and duty requirements, supervisory management responsibility. My understanding, this has also been turned over to the TBI for further investigation.
Thank you, Sergeant. Any questions for the agency? All right. Mr. Gregg? You would approach the lectern and go ahead and identify yourself for the commission, please, and give us your side.
My name is William Douglas Gregg. Been in law enforcement for 28 years now, worked for the Washington County Sheriff's Office for 27 years and 9 months. Try to keep my record clean for that period of time. Tried to make the best decisions I could while at work. Obviously, on this date, some bad decisions were made, not all mine. Take responsibility for the decisions I made. I did contact Captain John Light on the date of, and I advised him of what had been told to me. Captain Light advised me to go work my magic and get her out of there. That was pretty much his exact words to me, which in my mind gave me kind of backed up what I was already thinking. She had committed a felony act of vandalism. Deputy Peterson had advised me that he had enough to charge her with felony vandalism and that we could go in and get her. I believed, because she had made statements to the officers several times that they needed to leave and go get a warrant and come back, that she was trying to get them to leave the property so she could leave. She was intoxicated. And I was doing the best I could. I'm not going to say I didn't make mistakes. I don't think there's anybody here that's worked in law enforcement for 27 years that hasn't made a mistake. And I did. Made a mistake as a supervisor, and I take that responsibility. If I had it to do over, we'd do it a totally different way. But at the time, I thought I was doing what was right. I actually resigned on the date of my internal interview because there's political things that are going on at the sheriff's office between myself and the sheriff. And I didn't want to leave myself in that situation. I knew I was going to get terminated. He had told me during our first encounter when he became the sheriff that if I did anything derogatory or said anything derogatory toward him or made any short jokes toward him, he was going to fire me. So I knew that was coming. So I went ahead and tendered my resignation for that date in full thoughts of not going back into law enforcement. You all know, if you've worked in law enforcement, that it's changed a lot in the last 27 years since I started. I've been doing the best I can to keep up. I attended all the training I could prior to the new sheriff being implemented. But for the last 3 years, I haven't really gotten any good training other than in-service training. And I stand before you now as a guy that's made mistakes, and I'll admit it. I can't change it. I've spoken with somebody at the DA's office today who advises me they're just waiting right now on a closure letter from the TBI that they don't believe there's anything going to come from that investigation other than a closure. Between the time when I resigned and the time that I was sent my letter of termination because of the 2 general orders that I violated, I was contacted by Chief Reagan Tilson of the Irwin Police Department, and he offered me a job. Rather than accept it on the phone, I drove over to his office. I sat down with him, explained exactly what had happened and why I was in the situation I was in. Chief Tilson confirmed that he wanted me to come work for him. So at that time, I began working for the Irwin Police Department. Since then, I've redone my psychological test, I've redone a physical, I have done a background, fingerprints, requalified, and I'm currently working on patrol with the Irwin Police Department, not in a supervisory capacity. Right where I would like to stay as a patrolman, trying to help the citizens of Irwin and Unicoi County. If you would allow me to do that, I would continue to do that.
Commissioner Wilbur, I have a question on one sentence in here. It says you stated that you interpreted the work your magic to be a reference to using your lock picking skills. You are known for lock picking skills.
I started a locksmithing course, middle of last year. And the reason I did it is because we had a lot of welfare check calls at that time. And we had persons inside the home who couldn't get to the door, whether they were injured or elderly. And rather than damage their property, I thought, that would be a handy asset to the officer to be able to get inside the homes without damaging something that the family would have to come and fix.
Thank you.
And if I could add, I've been trained as a tactical breacher for 20-some years. So in my mind, there's no difference in me ramming the door and smashing the door frame and door as there is to pick the lock and not have to worry about the damage and have to worry about trying to secure it after we leave. So I wasn't doing it to be a burglar, trying to do it for a lawful purpose.
Commissioner Wright. Mr. Gregg, you said the deputies had told you that they had probable cause. But yet we're going, in their mind, they were going to go get a warrant. What was still the basis of the probable cause for a warrant?
First of all, they never told me that they were wanting to go get a warrant. They told me that he had probable cause, basically. He said we had grounds to make an arrest based on felony vandalism. And the reasoning was this man and this woman had been separated for, at least 30 days after their final divorce. At 9 o'clock that night, 9 o'clock-ish, she began texting him because they were supposed to set up some type of app on their phone so that they communicate back and forth. And I guess it was allowing the court to monitor it, but he had not set it as that. So she was mad about that. She was texting him back and forth and he was not responding. The second set of texts was her accusing him of sleeping with some other woman, and she knew that he was staying with that other woman, and that was fine. And then the third set of texts was the photographs of the camper with the tires slashed, and the text that said, "You're going to need new tires for your camper," just out of the blue. So the deputies believe that she was the only person responsible because there's more probable than not that she had committed the crime. The husband had seen the camper 2 days prior and it was fine. And then all of a sudden it's got flat tires and it's slashed.
Commissioner Wright again. So you was presented all that at the scene?
On the telephone. He had called me several times on the phone. I was at a different location trying to approve reports and was working with a couple of other deputies who were on calls at the same time. And he was updating me as he got new information.
So 1, we had no admission from her that she had done it. 2, we had nobody that saw her do it. And 3, we don't have pictures of her doing it. Which, it's been a while since I've been in law enforcement, but it still sounds like reasonable suspicion, not probable cause to me. I don't have any questions.
Yeah, I'll just say one of the things I did wrong is I should have had them come to me and just looked at the probable cause. That's what I'm saying. I would not do it again the same way. Knowing what I know now.
Commissioner Beverly, do you know the status of her charges?
I do not.
And the TBI has not issued a clearance letter?
I have not seen that.
I think we're looking at something else. It kind of goes back to the Rutherford County one if it's still under investigation. We look at an agreed order or
Commissioner Ryan, do we have anybody that can actually confirm that there is still a TBI investigation going on? That we had, is it just not closed or we just don't know?
When I inquired about it yesterday, before coming here, I was told by my command staff that yes, the TBI is still investigating. They have not heard back what the outcome's been yet.
I can give you a contact number for someone at the DA's office who can probably help with that.
Well, and to your question about possibly doing something similar, to the motion you guys made for Rutherford County. Mr. Gregg, did I hear you mention that you are currently employed with the Irwin Police Department?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been working there?
Since toward the end of March.
Okay. Is this a representative of Irwin PD with
This
you?
is the Chief Reagan.
Yes, sir, I'm the chief.
All right. Chief, have you submitted a pre-employment packet for Mr. Gregg? I don't show that he is on your roster.
I am still working on that. I spoke with Rafael Bello. I am waiting on fingerprints. I don't know what the holdup is. He's not the only one I have issues with waiting on fingerprints, but I do have the rest of the packet together. Doug Gregg has been working under my second shift supervisor, Lieutenant Patrick Bennett. He works 6 to 2. Obviously, I've known Doug for quite some time. I'm not familiar with the incident in Washington County. Wasn't there, so I can't speak to any of that. What I can speak to is I've been chief since 2008. And this officer here has helped us in many different ways. And I have nothing but the utmost confidence in his ability. I do have him as a strong supervisor, but at one time he was a strong supervisor. So I can't speak to this call, and I'm not a judge. And I can't say anything about a TBI investigation. I was confident enough to hire him.
Okay. Do you understand that the motion that they've made for the previous agency that placed that officer in a suspended status, that if that's something that they passed motion for today, put him in a suspended status and he would not be able to work for you while this is pending?
I absolutely understand that, sir, and that's why I'm standing here today to ask the committee to let us keep him for a lot of reasons. 27 and a half years is a long time. We're talking about a call that went sideways with, we've all been there with the information that is fast and flowing in a large department with a lot of officers out. So I would say I had enough confidence to hire him, and I would stand beside him before the post committee today.
Commissioner Wilbur, I just have a quick question for you, Chief, just to clarify for the record. He did come to you before you hired him to tell you the exact facts, and they match with what we heard here today.
He is extremely clear with the exact facts prior to my hiring him. And I also spoke with someone at his previous agency, which we have a pretty good relationship with, and got the exact same story. So yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Chief.
Any further discussion or any other questions the commission may have?
Commissioner Jefferson, I'd make a motion to wind up putting in a suspended status, basically pending on what the TBI and District Attorney General's office decides to do as far as charges goes.
So, Mr. Gregg, what that would look like is basically signing an agreed order for an indefinite suspension of your post certificate. If at any point you were able to obtain a closure letter from the DA or the TBI, you could come back in front of the post commission to seek reinstatement. If it did lead to some type of pending litigation, such as charges, we keep you in that suspended status until the result of that litigation. You would be put in a suspended status in the National Certification Index if that's something that you were to sign.
I know that the person I spoke with today at the DA's office advised me that they're expecting a letter like Monday. Rather than put me out of work where I can't support my family, is there no way we could just reset the hearing? Respectfully.
That's the issue, whether or not the commission wants to essentially do sort of what we did before we did these agreed orders, which would essentially just be to sort of kick the can on the issue a bit. I will say that our agreed order was designed for those cases that had been sort of lingering in litigation. This is not in any kind of, it's under investigation, obviously, but not in litigation. If it's a matter of a month, possibly that's something you may take into consideration and just push it to, you know, for another month, and then we can come back with the status as to where we are. But otherwise, then I would suggest we go with agreed order suspension.
Commissioner Ryan, I have a few more questions for the department, if that's possible.
Yeah, certainly. Sergeant?
Yes, sir. Sergeant, what about the 27 years with Washington County? Was there any other disciplinary action during that time?
Not to my knowledge, no, sir.
Outstanding deputy during that time, or to your knowledge, how long have you been with Washington County?
I've been on with Washington County off and on for the last 32 years.
So you're very familiar with.
I know Officer very, very well.
Was there any other disciplinary actions to Deputy Letterman or Peterson out of this, or was it pretty well clear because it was the sergeant on the scene that made the call?
I'll be honest with you, I don't know exactly what if they got suspended or what their disciplinary action was. I was not privy to that information. So I cannot speak to what's happened to them at all.
And you said you didn't know about the girl that was arrested. You don't know what happened to her actual charges.
No, sir.
This happened in April. Commissioner Wright, I'll second the motion.
So we have a motion proposing the suspension, the agreed order of suspension, and we have a second.
Good.
Well, I was just gonna say that, okay, understanding we have the agreed order, in this case, since there's not any ongoing litigation, I mean, I don't know that y'all would be breaking with any tradition to allow it to go for an extra month, but those are the two options, either that or the agreed order of suspension.
I don't think it's the agreed order. Would be an agreed order. I don't think he, based on what he said, would agree to it. So I guess I would offer more of a friendly amendment to table it a month. Let's see if we can get that clearance letter and go from there. Just because if it's not an agreed order, then we have to go get one step.
It's the normal route, yeah.
I could clear up a couple things. I did have a written letter of counseling back in 2004 when I was a patrolman the first time I was a patrol officer for pursuing a DUI with my lieutenant's permission. I also have a notebook that I brought with me with my training information, my citations, my officer of the year, 4 year, or officer of the month for 4 years in a row, my officer of the year plaque. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I'm fighting for my own career right here. So I'm going to do everything I can to try to keep my job. If y'all would indulge me, or if you don't want to see it, that's fine.
And it's one of those things that, as far as for me, you know, kind of just adding for my reasoning for that is that, you know, we had an officer that was just here. So, you know, kind of, I know every case is different, but it's kind of one of those things that the last individual is here made a bad judgment call. And, you know, depending on what wound up happening, charges there with that individual, that prevented him from wind up, you know, working at another agency until that got that cleared up. In your instance, it's one of those things, you know, it wound up being those things. You had a good friend that was there to offer you a job, you know, when you were, you know, kind of in a tight spot, and that, you know, I definitely respect him for that, because, you know, anybody that was a good friend that knew somebody for years and had a good career, you know, it's one of those things anybody would probably reach out to do that to be a good friend. I completely understand that. You know, but it's also one of those things too that, you know, basically it's kind of like a bad judgment call that, you know, that you wind up saying, and, you know, kind of we're in the same boat with possible, you know, whether or not there is criminal action or no criminal action, you know, that's yet to be seen, you know, just like we did with the other officer, you know. And it's one of those things that I commend your years of service. I do. And I know it's in a tight spot for you. You know, but it's kind of like one of those things that, you know, I just, but that's the reasoning right there as far as it goes for my motion.
Commissioner Wright, and I'm gonna add a little bit of my second in there as well. After 27 years, I feel very confident that you should have been able to establish what is and what isn't probable cause. And a bad marital situation happening is a lot of times you really need to, you can get yourself into those pretty easy. I know and understand with the people there, especially when the ex is probably standing there in the yard as well. But I also think of that person that may or may not have, or did not have probable cause to do, that was in the house, that actually got pulled out of the house in front of her kids without probable cause. I feel like 27 years of service, we're not talking about 27 days, we're talking about 27 years. I feel like we should have definitely had that established before we entered the house. That's why I was continuing with my second.
So, if the commission was not able to seek an agreed order with the officer, the commission could still make a motion similar, an indefinite suspension, that would just be appealable. So basically you would move to do indefinite suspension until we figured out what the TBI was gonna do. You could still bring that letter back, either got it next month or whatever. And then instead of being that agreed order, it would just be y'all's decision, just like a decertification or no action would be your decision. And then he would just have that right to appeal within 3 days if you guys wanted to take a different approach. If you're concerned that it might not be a willing suspension, which still has the ability to suspend it.
Yes, then actually we need to hear from him whether he would have agreed to the
Restated.
to the agreed order or not.
I think we kind of have an idea of what he would do. I mean, that's, to get it on the record, that's fine.
To be honest, I'm borderline actually for decertification, but I mean, obviously there might be some other opinions, but we can.
I'd like to say that I still believe that there was probable cause. I've never said that there wasn't probable cause. During my interview for the internal, prior to that, the deputy Letterman had got a hold of the husband had been contacted by the ex, and she had told him if he would dismiss the charges, she would pay for the damages.
You had me until your last little bit there. So your understanding under the Fourth Amendment is if a felony is committed outside of your presence, you have the ability to go into someone's home without a warrant.
Yeah, that's one of the mistakes I made. That
So now you're saying it's a mistake.
I'm saying that us going in probably was a mistake. That's what I was trying to say earlier.
Can you take out the probably, was it a mistake or was it not?
It was. But I was also advised by the supervisor to work my magic and go get her out of there. So I'm not saying I was making perfect decisions that night.
So I'm sorry, say we keep you on in a couple of months, we have another where a felony was committed outside of your presence and they're in the house refusing to come out. What action would you take as an officer on the scene?
I'll contact my supervisor.
Well, what would you anticipate the answer to be?
To go get a warrant.
I agree with what you just said. You kind of had me until the end. It seems like there was some pressure to get this situation resolved. Why you said work your magic. and I'm glad you didn't boot the door, but still entry was made there. You've heard of the term contempt of cop. And I think really that's what we were dealing with here is we had enough, I think we can do it, so let's do it. Instead of taking that step back and being like, let's secure a warrant. Okay, she leaves the helm. Okay, the warrant is still active. I think we overstepped there. And again, I'm not sure that this was the route we should have taken, or it wasn't the route we should have taken.
Commissioner Wright, in that, I still cannot establish probable cause for a warrant itself. We haven't heard or seen anything that even would have established grounds for a warrant.
Officer Greg, I'll just go ahead for the sake of the motion that I have on the floor. Would you be willing to wind up doing the voluntary suspension until this gets wrapped up there with TBI and the DA?
It sounds like I don't really have a choice. So yes.
No, sir. No, I mean,
I'm not gonna get that wrong.
it most certainly is your choice.
Yes,
No,
I will agree to whatever.
legal.
The motion still is,
We have a motion and a second for the agreed order of suspension. If Mr. Gregg will sign the agreed order.
understanding that Officer Greg doesn't have to. I think you made that pretty explicit, but if that's still the motion, then makes it a second.
Yeah, we had a second from Commissioner Wright. And again, hopefully we can get this resolved within a month if the TBI or the DA will provide us with some kind of documentation that the matter's been resolved to your satisfaction. Any other questions or discussion? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Any not in favor? Motion passes.
We still have the pre-employment situation.
Well, if you'll get Mr. Gregg and Chief Reagan, maybe get with Case and Lakita and discuss and kind of find out maybe where the fingerprints got sent and got done. See if we can't get that resolved and get that taken care of. Of course, your certification is right now suspended, so you can't work right now anyway. So that's kind of resolves that issue temporarily anyways, but we'll try and get that fingerprint situation resolved as well. And it's that in the event that this does get resolved, we'll have everything on file and taken care of, and you can go right back to work. So,
Mr. Gregg, I'll be emailing you that agreed order for signature. And then next month or whenever you get something from the DA, you just let Mr. Creed know and we'll get you back on the agenda, okay?
So when I get the clearance letter, I'll have to be put off for like another month probably.
Yeah, so
Once a month.
if I'll send you the agreed order this week, you sign it. We'll get that approved. You don't worry about that. And then if for some reason the commission, doesn't approve it, of course you get a phone call, but I assume that they would. Then you will have investigator Creed's phone number and email address. So if you get a closure letter or some kind of indictment, whatever the status is, since this is your certification, I know you'll be the one on top of it. So you reach out to us through investigator Creed, and we'll know that we got to get him back on the agenda to fix this indefinite suspension.
and we'll get you on as soon as possible. It's obviously not something that we want to delay the agency or yourself. So it's not something that we'll kick down the road. We'll try and get you taken care of as soon as we can.
Thank you very much.
Sir. All right. Washington County in the matter of Morgan Leslie. There, Mr. Morgan Leslie. I am he. Looks like we have a note here from the investigator that he called and said that he would not be here, that he has started a new job and he couldn't get time off from work. So he was properly notified.
Commissioner Wright, motion decertified, default decertification for violation of departmental policies and procedures.
We have a motion, we have a second,
Commissioner Wilbur, second.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And we'll circle back around to, thank you, Sergeant, I appreciate your time. Collierville PD and the matter of Mario Freed. Doesn't look like we have Mr. Freed.
Apologize for Collierville driving all the way up here, but at least they got to hear the excitement of the post mission. Default motion for decertification for termination violation of policy.
We have a motion for default decertification. We have a second.
Commissioner Wilbur, second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, that would be all the matters on our agenda. So we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much.
It's relevant, that's the point.
Absolutely.
Chris Rossi, Captain, Collierville Police. It also came to our attention recently that Mr. Freed has accepted a job with the Olive Branch Police Department in Mississippi. So I don't know if the commission needs to be aware of that as well.
I'm not familiar with Mississippi's rules and regulations, but we'll certainly just make them aware of what's happening here in Tennessee.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.